celebrate it, because what a tremendous job. It just goes to show you what happens when great entities come together, and that's what happened for New Orleans to land the 2020 National Championship game. He serves in the capacity as COO of the Sugar Bowl in his 23rd year with the organization, served previously as the Assistant Executive Director and Associate Executive Director. And of course, he played a pivotal role in helping land the 2020 College Football National Championship game for New Orleans, along with the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation, among others. Please give a warm welcome, and I mean a warm welcome, to Jeff Hundley, COO of the Allstate Sugar Bowl.
Thank you all for the opportunity to be here. I think before we get started, Ken, you may want to check the record book, but I believe this is the first time in quarterback club history that we've had two guys from Iowa on the dais. I came prepared to talk about my Iowa Hawkeyes today, but given that... Three? All right. Definitely a record. So, given that the Sugar Bowl signs my paycheck, though, I better talk about Sugar Bowl matters here. First of all, congratulations to the Scholar athletes today. That's great that you're doing great on the field as well in the classroom. We take pride in the fact that the Sugar Bowl has events throughout the year that recognize Scholar athletes. So we appreciate what you're doing and congratulate you and encourage you to keep it up. Speaking of honoring people, every year the Sugar Bowl has the Greater New Orleans Sports Hall of Fame that we sponsor in the summertime. We happen to have one of our award winners with us here today. Mr. Jim Ravenette was recognized this summer for his great contributions for over 20 years to the sport of wrestling, not just in Louisiana, but around the country and the world. So Jim, congratulations to you. Well, speaking of the Sugar Bowl, most of you know the organization, but for some of you who may not, the organization is comprised of a volunteer committee, 125 men and women volunteers from around the community. They're all prominent, successful in their own right, federal judges, lawyers, doctors, business owners, etc. And what that means is I have 125 bosses who know how to do my job better than I do. A couple of my bosses are here in the room today. Paul Houlihan, who's the CEO of the Sugar Bowl, is here with us. As is one of our past presidents and the man responsible for bringing me to New Orleans, Mr. Chuck Zadaran. Chuck happens to be a big Hokie fan, and it was 22 years ago I sat in the Superdome and interviewed with Chuck and Mr. Jay Kern, and wound up here with the intent of being here 3 or 4 years. And I came from the University of Georgia. We were going to be here 3 or 4 years and move on, but we've loved it here, raised all 3 of my kids here, and New Orleans is home, and we're proud to be a part of your community here. We could talk about the biggest things that are happening with the Sugar Bowl right now. I'm sure you all don't want to hear about the Metro Cross Country Championships that we just held last weekend, but it was a great event. I mentioned the College Football Playoff National Championship game. We were indeed required to fight out of our weight class in order to get that event. We're in an era of college athletics and college football now where money is the prevailing factor. And while this is a great city with great tradition, culture, experience in hosting national championship events, it's not necessarily the #1 city for corporate fundraising. And so we had to find ways to be creative, to put together a bid that we thought would get us in the ballpark. No longer can we rely on the fact that we do it better than anybody else, but we had to have a financially competitive bid. We worked arm in arm with Jay and the Sports Foundation throughout the process from day one. And I'll be frank with you, in deciding whether or not to move forward with the bid, there were a number of factors that had to come into play. The Sugar Bowl wound up funding 2/3 of the bid that we were able to put forward. And that's basically a gift that the Sugar Bowl organization made to the city in order to help make this happen. But even with that, that money wasn't enough for us to be competitive. We had to have additional funding from the state of Louisiana, and as we went into the bid process, that didn't exist. Thankfully, due to the efforts of several people, not the least of which is Jay and his people, and several others that were involved in lobbying the state, we were able to get a law passed last spring. Funnily enough, an hour before the Sugar Bowl was getting ready to vote thumbs up or thumbs down whether or not we were going to vote, and it was our vote, I would say, was going to be heavily influenced by whether or not the state came through with some help. Ultimately, the state did come through, and that was just enough to put us over the edge with a bid that we thought would get us in the ballpark. And then the rest of the way, we thought that would be the point where the history, tradition, the expertise of the community groups involved would help carry the day. We had contributions. It was truly a community-wide effort. We had the Saints got involved with help. We had the SMG and the Superdome folks got involved. The New Orleans Tourism and Marketing Corporation came through at the end with some financing. Ultimately put together a package that was successful, and so we're proud that New Orleans will have 2020 vision with the College Football National Championship game when it comes to town then. That event last year was its first year, held in Dallas, and it's got off to a great start. TV ratings were fantastic, the highest watched game in the history of cable television. Only a week earlier, the Sugar Bowl semifinal game held that distinction for a short week for our Ohio State-Alabama game, which, like I said, for 7 days was the most watched cable program. So the playoff was certainly something that's popular with the fans from around the country, and something that is only going to grow. I think it's perhaps a bit of an overstatement by the college football playoff people to call it a Super Bowl, but it's certainly on a trajectory towards that right now. It's a multi-day event with a 2-day music festival, a 4-day fan fest, and we will be busy in the next couple of years as we not only finish the final pieces of the fundraising, but also begin planning to put on what we know will be the best ever college football playoff national championship game in year number 6. That 6 years marks the halfway point of the contract that we're in right now as a member of the playoff. We hosted, as you know, last year a semifinal game, the first ones. We're paired with the Rose Bowl, and we'll have a semifinal game every 3 years for that 12-year contract. It started in 15, so our next one will be January of 18, then we'll go to January of 21 and January of 24 with semifinal games. This year's semifinals are in the Orange Bowl and the Cotton Bowl, and those two will stay together as we will stay with the Rose each time. And then in year 3, you have the Fiesta Bowl and the Peach Bowl paired together. So we were very pleased with our first ever semifinal game, and I think the playoff people were pleased as well. Despite the fact that we're fighting out of our weight class, we were able to deliver more money to the playoff people than the Rose Bowl did or any other of the semifinal bowl games. And that's something that is not easily done in this community because we don't have a lot of consumer-based organizations from which to raise money. So we're proud of that fact, and it's something that we hope they won't forget as we move forward. Certainly, in the in-between years, this year marks the first year of our arrangement with the Southeastern Conference and the Big 12 Conference. In the past, you might remember in the old BCS era, we wound up with some games with teams from Utah, Hawaii, Cincinnati, etc., which they were great teams and good people, but didn't always have the biggest fan followings. We're pleased now that we were able to lock down the Big 12 and the SEC for the games in between the semifinal years, and we expect to have great crowds for those games. It was another example of where money played a big factor in getting that game. We had to bid against 10 other cities that received the RFP for the SEC Big 12 game. And ultimately it came down to a war between us and Dallas. And thanks to people like Chuck and Paul and the leadership of our organization, we had been saving for a rainy day and had invested wisely over the years, and the BCS frankly was good to us. And we were in a position, I mean, go figure, New Orleans outbids Dallas, you know, for the SEC and the Big 12. But we were able to do that, again, thanks to some foresight by the leadership of our organization. So here we are today. We're looking forward to that game. We get the best teams from the SEC and the Big 12, and what that means is we get the highest ranked team from the SEC that's not in the playoff. So today you would assume at least one team from the SEC is going to be in the playoff, so we'll get the next highest ranked team, which as we stand here today might be LSU. You know, given I'm just predicting what the rankings might be tonight when they come out. On the other side, it's kind of a wide open horse race. We have, who do we have? We have Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Baylor, and TCU all still in the hunt over there, and they all still play one another down the stretch. So there's some exciting football yet. Matter of fact, I'm going to be in Waco this weekend to see Baylor and Oklahoma play and see how that pans out. So we feel we have good options on the Big 12 side. They're a little bit different. They don't go by the rankings. They will give us the second place team, which in most cases probably will be the highest ranked, non-champion team. But there are some weird circumstances where the second place team might not if they beat somebody head to head and the other team was ranked higher. But we're excited about that. Contrary to popular urban myth around here, tickets are available for the Allstate Sugar Bowl game, and you can get them through Ticketmaster.com. Quickly, in addition to our football mission, we also sponsor more than 50 other events throughout the year, everything from lacrosse to we do a prep basketball tournament. They mentioned Ben Simmons from LSU. He played in our event last year that Ed Daniels and his group put on. It's a fantastic event, and so we bring in some excellent talent for that. We've got sailing regattas. We do the Crescent City Classic. Coaches who are entering the playoffs, we hope you're in the Allstate Sugar Bowl Prep Classic in the Superdome here in a few weeks, because we're wishing the best of luck on that route there. That's something we're proud of. We've long sought to be associated with the Louisiana High School Athletic Association. I think it makes perfect sense to the top amateur athletics organizations in the state that we should be partners. And so we title sponsor and are paying the LHSAA to support every one of their state championship events in all sports. So we're proud of that as well. And we're hopeful that some of those high schoolers will become Sugar Bowl ticket buyers somewhere down the line as well. But certainly we're proud to support their endeavors. I think that covers it for me. Anybody have any questions?
Again, congratulations on getting that 2020 championship game. As we all know, the Big 12 doesn't have a championship game, but if they do expand into 12, would that be a game that y'all be interested in trying to obtain? Is the Big 12 championship game, or with the AAC, the Tulane's in it, when they start doing their championship game, is that a game that y'all would be interested in hosting?
Well, we're certainly open to new opportunities. We always are keeping our eyes open for anything that may come our way. We'd have to evaluate, the practicality of having a championship game and followed by a bowl game in the same city. It may or may not be good for the Sugar Bowl, but it's certainly something that we would take a look at as we go forward.
You talk about raising money finances for the championship game. Does that just go to cover expenses, or is it kind of like the World Cup where you gotta buy it?
Well, without giving away too many trade secrets, it covers the expenses of the event, and then there is some incentive involved as well, and that was the way we chose to approach it. It didn't have to be that way, but we know what is motivating the commissioners of the major conferences right now, and they're all in arms races with one another, building, one guy builds a new building, the other, everybody else in the league has to build a new building to keep pace. And so it's, the pressures on them are very real financially, and now with the student athletes, with more going toward taking care of the student athletes, meals, et cetera, travel money, pocket money, that sort of thing, they certainly are feeling a pinch, and they know how to extract it. They've got a product, quite frankly, that people are throwing money at. The national championship game, people are throwing wild money at it, and we didn't, I'm certain that we didn't pay top dollar for it, but we had to get in the ballpark. And basically, from the last time we bid on the 15 and 16 national championship games, and the bid that we put together this time doubled what we put forth for that bid, and that bid was higher than what we spent on hosting the 2012 or 2011 LSU Alabama BCS national championship game. So it shows you how much it's escalated.
We don't want Jerry Jones to hear this, but what is the economic impact?
Last year it was north of $300 million in Dallas, and we expect it to be greater than that by the time it gets here. So it's certainly something very real, and something that this city and state will feel and experience when the event gets here.
Okay, 4 was better than 8. 4 was better than 2. Is 8 going to be better than 4 when we talk about the college playoff?
Well,
and will they throw out this contract and go to 8 before it ends?
The good news is they can't throw us out because we have a 12-year contract. New Orleans in the Sugar Bowl will be in it for 12 years. However, 3 of the games only have a 6-year contract. The Peach Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, and the Cotton Bowl only have a 6-year contract. And if they want to expand, that's when you're going to see the expansion after 6 years. Everybody has their opinion. My personal opinion is that they will expand, at that point in time, because the money's going to be too great, out there for them to, so they'll likely expand. But we have those semifinals that I rattled off earlier. Those are under contract, so we're not losing out. We're not losing our space. The Rose Bowl's not losing their space, and the Orange Bowl's not losing their space. The other guys, they got to fend for themselves.
Did I understand you correctly, the Big 12 participant for this year will be determined different than how the SEC participant?
That is correct. That's correct.
So it's not the College Football Playoff Committee that determines?
Well, again, this is getting a little inside baseball, but this game, because we had to bid on it, the game is actually owned by the conferences. The Sugar Bowl game now is owned by the SEC and the Big 12. And it's their right to deliver their teams however they want to. And the SEC chose to use the college football playoff rankings as their barometer, so we'll get the next highest. If for some reason we have something crazy and we have a 2-loss SEC champion who doesn't make the playoffs, then we get the SEC champion. Otherwise, we get the next highest ranked team behind the playoff team. On the Big 12 side, it's the second place team. And we've seen that in the SEC and others where the second place team may not always be the highest ranked. The guy behind them in third might be higher ranked because they beat them head to head during the season. So that's just the way the Big 12 chose to handle it. I think it had a lot to do with the fact that they don't have a championship game at the end of the year too. But let them get left out of the playoff one more year, and they'll have a championship game in short order. Anybody else? Thank you all very much.